of the qualities and the things you're already demonstrating at a young age, like, just pursuing what you are actually pursuing and doing, not caring what other people were doing, or caring that you want to please someone or to blend in with the crew or the people. You just go about doing your own thing. So that was really, really something, So the curiosity here is, like I said, something that you are born with. Your parents obviously played a very key role, but even with that, other people would have parents who would do the same, but not grasp it in the same way. So the curiosity still remains: is it a genetics? Is it a character that someone is born with? Is it something they learn from parents or the environment and all of this? So I guess you get all sorts of answers. People will turn out differently and all sorts. So, yeah, it's great to see your example. So, from KA, obviously, take us through the what happens next for the listeners. Which some of it I'm already aware.
But before I step into that, I'll say I think it's definitely a mixture of nurture and nature. Yeah. Someone might be born free-spirited, but if they're parented extremely strictly, told to comply, you can wipe that out of them. Someone might be born more compliant, but because they're exposed to an environment where they're given the freedom to express themselves, they're not punished for expressing themselves. They develop a little bit more of a free spirit and a separate personality than they otherwise would have. So at KA, towards the end, there were two people in my class who were very much above the rest. Me and a girl called Patience Massey. She's still my best friend, and she was my best friend from about Form 4. And there was this opportunity to apply to Cambridge for a scholarship. And I'd say the only difference between me and Patience is maybe a little bit of confidence, because she was just as qualified to apply for it. But in the end, she didn't. She let me apply for it. And until today, I don't even get why she didn't apply for it, because either one of us could have got it. But I did apply and I got it. In the end, we both used to do something called further maths, which was a subject introduced onto the curriculum. And she decided that she's going to give up further maths because she'd rather get 3 solid A's than risk not getting 3 solid A's. And I said, you know what? I've been studying this further maths thing for 2 years now. I can't drop it in the second year of studying it. So she'd been studying it for at least 4.5 terms before she gave it up. And when we started off in that class, it was me, Patience, and a guy called Luendo. Luendo, I think, gave up by the end of the first year. So it was just me and Patience. Going into the second term of upper 6th, Patience gave it up. So it was just me. At the end of the day, she stuck with her 3 subjects, ended up getting 2 A's and a B. I stuck with my 4 subjects, ended up getting 3 A's and a B. So it goes to show, I don't think her dropping that subject make that much difference. She got a bit of a wobble, and that was it. And I think that would have ended up in me getting the scholarship anyway. I think I had a lot of confidence in myself that put me to do things. And I was actually very proud of that B. That B is the proudest grade I got at A level. And when I was interviewing for Goldman Sachs, our coach told us that a B is not an achievement, so don't show off your Bs. And then I told him the story of my B and how I started off in a class with 3 people. We had only 1 textbook, which was from like 1980 something. Very few resources. And given the resources I had, I was so happy with the grade that I got.
Wow.
It was like, actually, when you tell it like that's a great story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it just goes to show, until you actually get to understand the story behind certain things, you don't grasp the full picture, So like you tell it. So that's really good. Really good. Okay. So from KA, the scholarship, and then
so I got a scholarship to Cambridge, spent 3 years there reading economics. Had a good time there, made friends. And, when you live in the UK amongst educated circles, you're not as exposed to racial tensions. I can't say that any of my time in Cambridge, I felt like I was Black. I was Black and I knew it. But because I'm the one who's Black and everyone I see around me is white, I don't really think about it that much. I thought more about being black when I saw another black person. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, I'm black. But really, my peers just treated me like one of them.
Yeah.
And I was very lucky to go into a year where I think it was an experiment year. They had quite a good mix of girls, boys, Asian. I guess I was the black one. So it wasn't, I didn't stand out. There were Asian, lots of Asians and whites. We had a few Chinese, Indian background. So that diversity led to me fitting in much more quickly, much more easily. And I had a brilliant time. And towards the end of those 3 years, or actually at the beginning of the second year, I learned that people apply for jobs, for internships, because they want to spend their second year summer working in an ideal sense in a job that will take them on.
Yeah.
So this is how I ended up going into banking. Everyone who was reading economics was applying to banking. I knew nothing. I didn't even know what banking was. So it was a steep learning curve. I subscribed to the FT because someone told me I should. It was very cheap. It was like £1 for a week of FTs. I guess they were trying to rope you in at an early age.
Yeah.
So I got my FT every day. I skimmed through, and I actually mostly got rejections because banks didn't want to apply for visas for you. And this was just after the dot-com bubble burst. So there'd been a tough couple of years whereby the last 2 years had hardly got any jobs in banking. Yeah. But this is the time when things were just picking up. So I managed to wiggle myself into Goldman Sachs. I don't even know how. There were lots of interviews. First set of interviews were on site. Then there were 3 interviews that were held at their offices. So I had 3 interviews, and 2 of them were with 2 people. So before I got that job, my first interview on site in Cambridge was 2 people. When I got to Goldman Sachs, I got 2 people, 1 person. So 7 people saw me just to get an internship at this place.
Wow.
And I'd also gotten interviews to something called SEO, which was Sponsors of Education Opportunity. And Goldman Sachs said, yeah, would like her to come in as part of SEO because it will give her some of the support that she needs. Yeah. And in fact, Goldman Sachs maximized the chances, and it shows how progressive they were, of people that were black getting in by offering coaching before you even got the interview. So Goldman Sachs, as soon as they invited me to an interview, they sent me an email and said, if you want support for the interview, here's this guy that's running this scheme. And that guy was an ex-Goldman guy running a coaching scheme. So it shows how keen they were to get people who knew the appropriate behaviors, how to be a bit more polished, etc. And that's how I ended, with a lot of support, coaching, and learning.
Wow. I mean, would you say, listening to that as well, would you say for you, as a quality, you're not afraid of failure, for example? Like you're saying, you're applying to a lot of jobs, but it looks like it wasn't phasing you whether you actually got accepted or you failed or whatever. You just soldier on. Would you say that is a particular character or quality of you?
Of course, like everyone else, I don't like to be rejected. But if I'm rejected, then I just have to apply for more jobs. I remember even the careers office in Cambridge told me that I'm going to struggle to get a job because of the visa issue. So I didn't get much encouragement there. So I just had to do what I could do. And what I could do, what was in my power to do, was apply for jobs. And I remember when I was applying for jobs, it was the Christmas holiday and I was in Malawi. It might actually be the Christmas holiday where my grandmother died, actually. I'm not sure. No, it wasn't. She died a couple of years after that. And the internet connection was slow. When I say slow, slow. So it took a lot of patience for me to apply to all these jobs. I applied to 6 or 7. I got rejected by 5. I got 2. So,
But it looks like you just brush it aside as one of those things. You just carry on and do more. Because this is one of the things that people don't take action to do things because, what if I fail? Or what if I do this? What if this happens? But if you can just block that off and just pursue your mission, whether you fail. I mean, isn't it with Edison and a lot of these successful people, they failed like thousands and thousands and so many times, but you just take the lessons from it, brush it aside and move on. And that's the mark of successful people like yourself. So you see, how you're still demonstrating these qualities of how you've taken yourself to this position by doing the things that you've done. So life at Goldman's, how many years, and then how did you move on from there? What was your experience working in investment banking?
So I only spent 2 years there, and I loved the people I met, but I hated the job. It wasn't for me. As far as I'm concerned, you work really hard in school, and I wasn't working hard in school so that I can work like a slave until death do us part. I was working hard so that at some point I could work less hard. But it was hard work. The one thing that I prize is being able to sleep. I hardly was able to do that. I got great support from my managers and whatever, but the workload is such that it was just loads of hours and weekends, and it was a very intense job. So I wanted to work. I decided I don't like this sort of project work. I want to work in the capital markets. I learned a lot. It was a good experience. I interviewed in the capital markets at Goldman and also at HSBC. It was the credit team. And the guy, his name was Dimi Kavathas. He really liked me. He said, "I think you're special, but a few people on my team, they're not so sure." So I ended up not getting that Goldman job on the credit team, and I got a job at HSBC on their corporate structured derivatives team. And that job was actually the right job for me. So as soon as I got the job at HSBC, the 2008 crash happened. And you know what? If I'd been at Goldman Sachs, I don't know if I would have survived, especially if I'd been on the credit team. This team that I'd interviewed with at Goldman Sachs did CDS, credit default swaps. I think some people got laid off. At Goldman in general, lots of people got laid off. HSBC, I had the luxury of being the most junior person on the team. And I was actually very productive. I got myself very productive very quickly. I joined in September. And when the bonuses were happening in February, I got an equivalent bonus to everyone else. And my manager was like, "Oh, when did you join?" I was like, "September." He goes, "Oh my gosh, it feels like you've been here a lot longer than that." That's how I got myself entrenched on the team. And actually, I promise you that throughout the 2008 crisis, I was never worried about my job. I knew I wouldn't lose my job. I enjoyed my job. It was a good job. The hours were better. I could have possibly stayed in that job longer than the 5 years I stayed there. But I wanted to try something different. In hindsight, if I knew what I knew today, I don't know if I would have quit that job because it was a very highly paid job. But I had in my mind an idea of how much money everyone who was self-employed was making. So this led to me spending 6 to 7 years self-employed. I created a product, I created a platform, I had a large following, but converting the following into revenue, anyone will tell you, is very hard work. I got myself into sort of all sorts of networking groups. I was earning money, enough to join a £6,000 networking society. But if I'm honest, from what I could see, because I do have a profession, the stability that I wanted was going to come from a job. And it ended up being that I realized that people glamorize self-employment. Self-employment is not all glamour. You don't get holidays. If I went on holiday, I took my laptop because I always had customers and things like that contacting me. You don't get weekends. You have to work at the weekend. Right now, I have the luxury of having a job where my contract is Monday to Friday. They don't want me to work at the weekend. And if I work at the weekend, they'll have a discussion with me about why you're working at the weekend. And I still earn. Whether I'm busy or not busy, I get my paycheck at the end of the month. I still get to pursue my hobbies. And one of the biggest reasons I wanted stability is that I wanted to send my kids to private school. I went to private school, and I actually wanted them to have access to the social network. And it's also transpired that the network at school has also become my network. And some of the best ideas I've got, even for investing my personal portfolio, I get from the school parents. And I don't know if I would have had that experience elsewhere. And I also felt like when my kid was going to a nursery where there was a mix of people who would have sent their kids to private or to comprehensive, I wasn't treated as welcoming. It wasn't as welcoming. I didn't feel like I was part of the group.
Yeah.
And private school, it doesn't care black, Indian, Chinese, white. You're there, so they know you can afford to be there. So they welcome you. They invite you to the teas and to the coffees, and you're part of the network.
Yeah.
And the job brought that stability of income that we can afford that.
Mm.
So that is what led to me leaving self-employment and going into employment. And I work for the government now. I get paid well. I don't get paid as well as I would have in banking, but to compensate for that, I have all the flexibility that I expected in self-employment, which I didn't get. The free time, the ability to go to every assembly, and ultimately, if I sort of chunk my life into phases of happiness, the banking period is probably the least happy, which shows to me that my happiness comes from being able to express myself in my own way. So because I've got a job that allows me to pursue hobbies, you know, in banking, I couldn't have a podcast like that. They'll see that as risk to the bank. Right now, I can have a podcast. If I wanted, I could even tell colleagues about it, but I don't. I like to keep my work and my personal separate. I know I've got like senior directors who are in like bands because we've got a job that accommodates free time and it accommodates a person being themselves. You don't have to separate yourself into, you don't have to marry yourself to the job and be told how to be. And in terms of my adult working life, I think this is the happiest I've ever been. Despite the lower income, it's a good income. And you have to be happy about that. And my husband also has a good income. Stability. There is no fear of losing our jobs. There is a flexibility to spend time with our children or not. We can afford childcare. So when it's school holidays, I'll send them to clubs. And it's just that diversity of life. I don't want life to be like, I'll enjoy it when I'm retired. I want to enjoy life now. I have retirement. We save, we invest, we grow, we develop. But I'm enjoying life right now. Everything that's happening right now, I'm happy with. And that's what the difference is. And it was a journey getting there. And I'm glad I didn't stay wedded to a job because of the income. And even when I had that job, I was always very careful to buy a house that I can afford, a mortgage that was affordable on a single salary, you know, things like that. Because I knew banking by nature, is not a secure job, but am I enjoying this enough that I want to be wedded to it for another 30 years? And I was like, no, not really.
Wow, that's great. That's a lot of stuff there, and in particular, you seem to have moved through that cycle of from school. You went and tested that banking job with the pressures and everything that came with that. Moved jobs, went into self-employment. Understood the challenges and the things within that, and then eventually decided what actually is the perfect balance for you. In a way, so if someone was looking, maybe a young person who is in uni trying to figure out what is best for them as a journey to essentially, let's say, financial freedom or time freedom. I mean, what would be your top tips in terms of should they get out there, maybe work, experience what it is, or should they jump into self-employment, or should they look at this in terms of their personal situation, what their values are, what they like, and what makes them tick, and all of that? What would be your advice from your experience and your journey?